Culinary Treasure Podcast. I'm Steven Shomler, your host. This episode is produced by Spark to Bonfire Media. I'm super excited about this episode. It came together because of some fun that I had on social media. We're going to tell the story, but I'm out here at the Steenson Family Farm. Is that right?
Steenson.
Steenson.
Yeah. Steenson.
Yes, Steenson.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys grow hazelnuts.
We do.
And you are Raina Wickstrom. Is that right?
That's right.
And if I have this correct, your maiden name is Steenson?
Yes.
So you were part of the big Steenson family hazelnut empire?
The Hazelnut Empire, yes.
Okay, well, we're going to need your whole story and how you got here and how I ended up sitting out here. We're outside of Salem, kind of northeast Salem, on just a small little farm. How many hazelnut trees do you have out here?
We have 6,000.
6,000. So 5,000 produce nuts, and then you have, 1,000 baby trees, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, we'll get into all that. But first, questions I ask everybody on my podcast. Where were you born?
I was born in Meridian, Mississippi.
Okay, and where'd you go to high school?
Battleground.
Ooh, I know the mascot there. They were the Tigers.
Yes, home of the Tigers.
My son Zach went to Skyview, and he was Skyview Storm.
Yes, some of our mortal enemies.
I've been to many a football game out there in Battleground. Okay, so now so obviously at one point in your life you were living in Battleground. Mm-hmm. Now you're living out here in Salem.
Yes.
So I'm excited to kind of tell that journey. But before we do, I want to give people some understanding of the farm. So tell me if I have this right. So there's your dad, Wayne, and then there's your grandfather, David.
Yes.
And then there's your great-grandfather, Tom.
Yep.
And in your world, that's Grandpa Tom.
Great-grandpa Tom.
Great-grandpa Tom,
Grandpa Tom.
And in the 50s, he bought this farm, and he had, wheat and eggs?
Yes.
And then probably some chickens if he had eggs.
Definitely chickens.
See how smart I am? And then what year did he plant the hazelnut trees?
The hazelnut trees were planted in 1968.
1968. Well, since I was born in 69, that means those hazelnut trees are about 51 years old.
Yep.
Okay, and then so it's been around in the family for a long time. So in the late 2000s, your dad moved out here, and he's always helped out at the farm. But in the late 2000s, he moved out here, taking even more of an active role on the farm.
That's right.
And then at some point, right now, your grandpa David is the one kind of calling the shots, right? Mm-hmm. But at some point, it'll be your dad calling the shots. And I had a lot of fun. I asked you, when did you become a hazelnut farmer? How long have you been out here? And what did you tell me?
September.
September, and we're at the end of October. So you've been a hazelnut farmer for all of 8 weeks.
I certainly have.
Which I think is hilarious and awesome. But at the same time, as we'll unpack the story for people, you've been around hazelnuts your whole life.
I have.
So it's not like this is something, it's not like I went and started working in hazelnut farm for 8 weeks. Like I have no context, no experience. It's kind of in your blood, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Okay, so let's talk about your hazelnut journey. Were they just around all the time?
They were. So, if we asked for a snack, we'd get a bowl of hazelnuts to have. And
did you come out to the farm at all, during the summer or holidays, or?
Yep. Whenever we had a break from school and we were able to, we were out here at the farm.
Okay, so I'm suspecting that your family being hazelnut farmers growing up, was there any fun Thanksgiving hazelnut-centric dishes that we need to hear about?
Of course. It's our very delightful hazelnut Jell-O salad.
A hazelnut Jell-O salad? Okay, yes. What goes into this thing?
So it's a strawberry Jell-O base with hazelnuts, cranberries, and apples.
Hazelnuts, cranberries, and apples. And what kind of Jell-O? What flavor is the Jell-O?
Strawberry, usually.
Strawberry. Now, could you do it with lime? Would that work?
We can always try.
Yeah. Because I think if we did that, we could sell it in Minnesota. Because you lived in Minnesota for a time.
I did.
I lived in Minnesota for a time. Jell-O is that's salad there.
Especially green Jell-O.
Especially green Jell-O. That's how you make a salad. Who needs lettuce when you got green Jell-O?
Exactly. It counts as a salad.
Counts as a salad. You have that in a hot dish and you got a feast.
So delicious.
And I thought I was kind of, warped into Minnesota culture living in the Twin Cities, but you actually lived in Bemidji.
Bemidji, northern Minnesota.
Oh, that is a whole different world up there.
Oh, yeah.
Hats off to you.
Oh, don't you know?
Hats off to you for surviving. Although I loved my time in Minnesota. I love those people, and it was a lot of fun. Okay, so you came out to be a hazelnut farmer in September. It's now the end of October 2019. About 8 weeks you've been doing this hazelnut farming. But prior to that, you were a nanny, but you weren't just a nanny. I mean, you were like a professional nanny. And some of the people you worked for were like famous. We can't talk about who they are.
Can't talk about that.
NDAs
Secret.
and all that. But like you were a nanny to like the stars.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
And then just before you moved here professionally, you were living and working in Portland. And your husband works in Portland.
Yes.
And you decided that you were just going to go ahead and become a hazelnut farmer.
Yep.
What was that conversation like with your husband? Hey, honey, I'm gonna quit my well-paying job and go be a hazelnut farmer.
That's kind of how it was. Yeah, we were ready for a change from the big city and had this opportunity that I had been talking to my dad about for a while. And we were able to make it happen.
So it was kind of an ongoing conversation that emerged between you and your dad. And so your husband kind of knew along the way, hey, when talking about it, and you finally said, let's do it.
Yep.
And he said yes.
He did. Yes.
That is fantastic. I like that very much. I just love when people go for it. Okay, so before you got here, before you're a full-time professional hazelnut farmer, what was some of the pull and the allure and the things that were appealing to you?
Yeah. I wanted our kids to be able to be out in nature and get their hands dirty, grow up on a farm and have a sustainable life with farming and nature and, yeah, getting away from the big city feel.
Okay, so and some people hearing this podcast may think, oh, she kind of had a romanticized view. But I grew up 260 acres, middle of nowhere, Southern California, and so I was able to get my hands dirty and get that kind of life that you were wanting for your kids. And your kids are right now 2 and 4.
That's right.
Okay, I think this is a fantastic place for them to grow up.
Oh, they love it.
Okay, so now you've been hazelnut farming for a whole 8 weeks. Do you love it?
I do. Yes, it's been great.
And some farmers are like, people that aren't farming are like, oh, how wonderful. That's so great. It's kind of like talking to a food cart owner that's owned a food cart for 2 months. Let's see how the jaded food cart owner's like, let's see how she does through her first winter when you make $30 a day. And I can hear some farmers listening to this podcast and they're probably thinking to themselves, well, let's see how she does after a year, a whole cycle. But to those of you that are thinking that, I just wish you could see the joy on her face and the fulfillment. And you really do love this new life that you've entered into.
I do. Yes.
Okay. So, but if I wanted to come back in a year or two and do an update and say, is it still good? I could come back and do an update.
That'd be great.
I love
Hopefully
it.
I'm still around.
Oh, you will be. You will be. I can just tell that you absolutely love it. Now, something fun happened in my life just recently. How I ended up here is I was looking on my Instagram and I saw this Instagram came across and I noticed I started getting followed by Growing Up Hazelnut. It was this Instagram account. And at first, when I first looked at that, Growing Up Hazel, do they have a daughter named Hazel and they're raising? I was looking real quick and then, it says Hazelnut. Oh, I love hazelnuts. And then I looked and it's like a brand new account. Kind of, tell us what it's about, this amazing Instagram account.
Yeah, so it's kind of a journey of our family being on our family farm, the kids growing up around here and playing around and helping us work. And just so that people can get to know our orchards, our hazelnut trees.
So it's kind of the journey of you and Aaron, your husband, and the kids, kind of your family's transition into farming. But at the same time, it also tells the bigger story of the Steenson Family Farm and all things happening here. Kind of both, right?
Yes, yeah. And my sisters and their families. And
I was just so enchanted by it. And so you have a sister, Jill, and she comes around and helps out and hangs out, right?
Yep.
And then Lauren is like a hero to me now that I've discovered what she did. Tell us about Lauren and what she did as a really cool gift to you.
Yes. Well, Lauren is the one who got our Instagram account up and running, and she gifted it to us with a couple of pictures already on it. And she is the one who tells me if my hashtags are good or not.
Well, Lauren, if you were listening to this podcast, man, hats off to you. Thank you so much. I've done that for many a people. And the fact that you had the wisdom to say a hazelnut farm has to tell their story, man, hats off to you, Lauren. That's just amazing. And her background is she's in PR.
She is, yes. She's in the Coast Guard, and she does public relations for them.
Well, Lauren, thank you so much for your service to our country and for helping this hazelnut farm. Have you ever been to the Wedge Cheese Festival in Portland?
I have not.
Oh, it's a fantastic event. I absolutely love it. But I think if Lauren and I went, it would drive us nuts. It drives me nuts every year because they meet all these amazing cheese farmers and they work so hard, and they not only have to raise the animals and milk them, and then they make the cheese, and it's an insane amount of work. I mean, farming, I have huge respect for farmers, but like none of them have social media accounts, or they don't do very much, or they don't have a website. And it's like, but you need fans, and because fans helps get business. And so that's why I was about jumped out of my skin when I realized this is a real hazelnut farm. And then I looked into it like, this is for real. So I reached out and said, well, let's do a podcast and tell your story. And then the more I've heard the story, the more I've just become enchanted. As you know, on my podcast, I love farming. I've done I think 3 podcasts now with Mount Hope Farms, and you've heard those, right?
I have. They're great.
Oh, Mike does a fantastic job. He's just a shy guy. He's done a great job. He does Instagram stories now. You got to go check out Mount Hope Farms, and then you need to make friends with Laura and go spend the afternoon out with her.
Yeah, that'd be great.
She's raising her boys on a farm, her kids on a farm, and I think you guys hit it off well. And then I've done a number of podcasts with my friend Jennifer, who's a wasabi farmer. She goes real life wasabi out on the Oregon coast. So whenever I get to tell a farm story, I'm very excited to do it. I just think it's a joy. Okay. So we kind of covered your story, how you got here. You're just crazy. You're going to leave your job and become a farmer. You've been doing it 8 weeks and you still love it.
Still love it.
Okay. So for those that don't, let's give people a little background into this particular farm. Let's see. How many trees?
6,000.
6,000 trees. And how long does it take from you plant a tree to where it starts producing nuts?
About 5 years.
About 5 years. Okay. And so you have 1,000 baby trees.
We do.
And then how long before they produce nuts? 3, 4 years?
Yep. They're about a year old right now.
Okay. So maybe 4 or 5 years. Okay. So they're on the front end. Okay. So how do you pick hazelnuts? Because, you gave me a bag of unprocessed hazelnuts. So they're still in the shell. And they're good size. But my wife and I, we planted blueberries in the front yard. We planted 2 different types. 2 plants of really nice, amazing blueberries, and then 2 types of this ugly terrible little blueberry that you can't even pick, but the birds like that one. And some of those blueberries are almost as big as these hazelnuts. And I know how long it takes me to pick blueberries. How the heck do you pick these? How's that work?
Well, luckily we don't have to pick them by hand. They end up falling off the tree. And then we have 3 separate pieces of equipment that we use to get them.
No, wait a minute. The hazelnuts just fall off the tree.
They do, yes.
That is pretty amazing. So you don't have to pick them. You have to gather them.
We gather them.
So you walk around with a little basket and you just bend over 9 million times picking them up?
Luckily, we have some fancy tractors that we get to use.
Okay, so tell me your version. Tell me Raina's version of how these fancy tractors and equipment works.
Yes, I just learned that this harvest that we just had. But first, the sweeper goes through and sweeps the hazelnuts and the debris all into one row in the middle of the row. So a big long pile in the middle of the row. So
we shot a little bit of video. We're going to make a short Culinary Treasure video kind of showing the rows and the trees so people can go see these rows, because the trees are planted about 20 feet apart, and then you have these really nice rows that the tractors can drive down, right?
Right.
So the first tractor goes down and puts the stuff in the middle of the row?
Right, yep.
Okay.
Yep, sweeps it to the middle. And then the picker comes through next and scoops up everything in the long piles down the row. And then it goes up a conveyor belt and blows out all of the leaves and sticks and debris. And then the conveyor drops the hazelnuts into giant totes.
So now I have a sweeper, and a dustpan at home, that I have to sweep up sometimes. And this sounds like a really smart dustpan.
Super smart.
Because it separates the twigs and the empty ones, and that's amazing.
Yeah, it blows it out with a big fan.
Okay, so the lighter stuff kind of gets blown away.
Gets out there.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the actual hazelnuts, they keep going up on the conveyor belt down into a tote.
Yep, they fall down into a tote.
Okay, and then what happens to those totes?
Those totes get picked up by a forklift driver driving a tractor with a rear-loaded forklift on our particular farm.
Your particular farm, okay. Now, when you used to come out here as a kid, and you'd, for family fun stuff, but you'd also, like for holidays and to see, your grandpa and all that, but you'd come out and help during harvest.
Yes.
Was there ever times during harvest that you kind of like practiced driving the tractor?
Did a little bit of tractor driving practice, yes.
Okay, and that brings us to this 2019 harvest. What was your job for harvest this year?
I was the chief forklift driver.
So you would drive this forklift tractor and drive through the trails, right?
Yep.
And now you can't drive on the ones that have been harvested yet with the forklift.
Right, we don't want to crack the nuts.
And you can't drive on the ones where there's the lines. You have to find it's like a hunt and peck thing to find the trails where you can drive.
Exactly. Yep. Sometimes it's a mile round trip to get to and from the sweeper or the picker.
Okay, and so then you pick up the tote. And how much does a tote weigh?
It's about 1,100 pounds.
1,100 pounds. You pick up an 1,100 pound tote with a forklift tractor, and then you drive it out to the staging area, and then you pile them up there.
Yep.
And then eventually a big truck comes, and then you load them onto the forklift again and put them from the staging area up into the big truck that hauls them away.
Yes.
To get processed.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, you told me the most horrifying thing. Now, I've driven a forklift, and I got to be pretty good at it when I was in my younger days. But there's something insanely devious about the forklift you drive. And you were describing it to me as you're loading it up. You're grabbing this big 1,100-pound tote, and then you're loading it up onto a truck. What's the devious, terrible part about this?
The fact that it's a rear forklift and the seat doesn't spin.
So you're looking over your shoulder, backing up backwards, and the hydraulics, the controls to the forklift, are they in the front of you?
They're on the back.
They're on the back? So you have to twist around.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Where's the foot controls?
Normal foot places.
Okay, so you've got stuff ahead of you, stuff behind you. That sounds like a spatial nightmare.
It was the learning process.
I'm tempted to say we need to do a Kickstarter to raise money for you as you get a front-loading forklift tractor or a chair that spins around or something.
That's on our wish list.
And did you spill any totes?
I did not spill a single tote.
Okay, so that first day, go way, way back in time. If you can remember when you were just a wee farming lass and 8 weeks ago, what was that first day like driving that tractor around? Were you nervous at all?
I was very nervous. Yep. I didn't know what to expect.
And then I bet the first time you're lifting it up in the air to put it up. It's one thing to kind of go along the ground. You kind of feel safe as you're driving through with your tote. But when you have to load it up and put it onto a truck, were you nervous then?
Luckily, I didn't have to do that part yet. I didn't pass the checklist to do that this year, but maybe next year.
Okay. I would have been so nervous that I would have spilled totes.
Oh, I know. Yes.
Okay. And so if I remember correctly, you did about 90 totes this year. Mm-hmm. How did you feel at your 70 totes? You're like, man, I'm a champion forklift driver.
Oh, yeah. It was awesome. Yeah. All good.
And you enjoyed it. Okay, so harvest season, you have to do all that. Sweep things into a line. They have to be picked up, hauled away. There's a lot of work during harvest. And when does harvest happen?
Harvest happens late September, early October. Kind of have to plan it between the rain.
Okay. And then what do you do around here in the winter?
We do pruning. It's our big pruning time.
Yeah, one of the things I've learned from watching Mike from Mount Hope Farms, watching his Instagram stories is he's working all year round. Mm-hmm. Whether it's in the garage and sharpening stuff or the shedder where he calls it, sharpening things. There's things to do all year that I just had no idea. Mm-hmm. So in the winter, there's pruning.
Yep.
And what are the things you do in the spring?
Do fertilizing and spraying and just general upkeep of the orchards.
Okay, so it's not like you just harvest and then you lay around and do nothing for 10 months and wait for harvest again.
Right. Yes.
Okay, and you have some big dreams for this place. I mean, you have 6,000 trees is a lot of trees.
Yeah,
I mean, that's incredible. But to my way of thinking, in my head, you're like a wholesaler because you grow them and then they go off to the processor and then the processor sells them off to people. But I can't go to the Steenson Family Farm's website and I can't buy some hazelnuts or hazelnut treats yet, right?
Not yet. No,
nope. Not yet. But that's something you want to do?
Yes, we would love to get into that industry of making delicious treats and other gifts.
Okay, so maybe let's set a goal. Let's say in the next 2 years.
Yeah,
how's that? Then great. I can go online and I can go ahead and find that and just buy some stuff. I don't know. I have no idea what you could make, and you probably don't either yet.
I found an old-fashioned Filbert cookbook, which is like the old name for hazelnuts, and so I'm going to practice some recipes from there and see what we can get.
Yeah, that's from the 70s, right?
It is.
Oh, I'm going to take a picture of that book, and my wife would love to see it. That sounds like so much fun because you're on the front end of the creation. What kind of stuff are we going to have? Because maybe you'll have, you like the wasabi podcast, maybe you'll have wasabi seasoned hazelnuts, or
that would be awesome.
Maybe you'll have hazelnut and chocolate, or who knows what. But what fun to spend the next year or two figuring that out to where you can actually then sell that.
That would be wonderful.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. That just excites me. And now, is there more room to plant other stuff out here?
There is. I would love to have a little dahlia farm.
Oh, my sister's putting in a flower farm. Dahlia farms would be awesome. How beautiful.
I know. It'd be so cute.
Are you excited by all the potential and the fun stuff that's ahead of you?
Yes. I don't want to make too many waves yet and scare off Pa from the orchard. Pa's my grandpa.
Yes. Yeah, one thing at a time. We'll
Exactly.
do one new thing at a time.
Exactly.
Take it slow and not freak him out and have fun with. But yeah, just eventually, how cool that you could be selling, Steenson Family Farm stuff, whatever that is, and have some dahlias. And I'm enchanted by the whole thing. I'm really enchanted. So we shot some video, but I missed all of harvest. I want to come back next year and doing harvest and shoot video of all this stuff.
That would be great. It's pretty fun to see. Definitely. Can't really even imagine it just hearing how harvest is like.
Yeah. Now, I have to tell you, I love hazelnuts. And you mentioned, I think you have it wrong. Filberts are like a whole different thing. Filberts on our school's hazelnuts. I mean, that's what I tell my wife.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's like chickpeas and garbanzo beans. I don't want those darn chickpeas. They're terrible. But garbanzo beans, they make much better hummus than chickpeas.
Yes, that's what I hear too.
And chocolate and filberts taste terrible, but chocolate and hazelnuts, that tastes absolutely fantastic. Well, Raina, it's been a delight having you on the podcast. I wish you all the success. I'm going to be following your journey. I look forward to coming back next year and do some filming at Harvest, and maybe we'll do an update podcast and your 1 year update. You've been through your first year of farming. But man, I celebrate. I have daughters. How awesome that you are a woman in farming. Not everybody does that. I think it's just a fantastic thing. I got some really fun farming friends you need to meet. Yeah. You're just going to love it. I wish you all the best and all the success. And thank you for these. So what do I do with these? By the way, just as we close, you gave me a bag of hazelnuts. What do I do with these?
Yeah, so you'll have to crack them open yourself.
Okay.
You have a hazelnut cracker.
Okay.
And then, you could lightly roast them just in the oven. Or you can practice your own hazelnut recipes too if you...
I've got some Oregon Coast wasabi seasoning salt. I may make something with those. And then my wife does amazing stuff with chocolate. Maybe we'll do those and the chocolate and the hazelnuts and the Oregon Coast wasabi seasoning salt.
Ooh,
I love that. All right. Well, I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
So much.
Cheers.